Hi everyone, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey Dram Slam Live. Welcome to this Tuesday night and thank you for giving up your evening to join me. We're a little bit rusty today. It's been a couple of months since I've done a live stream, but today's guest is a perfect opportunity to dust off the shackles and get a conversation going. I'll be bringing a couple of bit of intros in, but we'll do the musical intro first and then we'll get going. See you in a moment. Well, I don't know about you guys, but that came through my earphones quite loud. So if you're listening on earphones, sorry about that. But yeah, not sure what happened. That's my normal intro. But welcome again to this No Nonsense Whiskey Live. We'll be bringing on my guest in just a moment, but there's a few things I want to talk about just before we get into the live stream. I'll say hello to the chat in just a moment, but a bit of housekeeping for you. I'm actually flying solo parenting tonight, so I've got my little monitor here. So if that does kick in at any point, I might have to do on a be right back, but hopefully you'll bear with me on that. Family first and all that sort of thing. There is a couple of little housekeeping things. I want to let you know about what's coming up on the channel. I'm doing December Advent calendar again, but this time around they're going to be on whiskey shorts, like YouTube shorts. So hopefully they won't clog up your stream too much if you're looking on YouTube on the telly. It'll be on your phone probably mostly, but if you want to follow along with that, there'll be short 30 to 60 second videos, a little bit of fun, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Teespring below as well. I kind of very quietly put out a new t-shirt recently to celebrate the only in-joke that I have with you guys, which is the Guard Whiskey TM. So there's a couple of t-shirts down there if you want to buy those off Teespring. Obviously I get a small commission off of those, but they're not coming from me, they're coming from wherever in the world you are, and Teespring probably makes a lot of money off of that. But I thought it was a little bit of fun to talk about the Guard Whiskey vibe. If you're into that, make sure you go and check that out, but there's no pressure on that whatsoever, just something that you guys might enjoy. And a final one as well, because this is probably going to be my last live stream of the year, given daily content in December. Massive thank you to all of you for supporting me this year. And of course, a massive thank you to all my Patreon subscribers, because genuinely you guys keep it ticking over. I wouldn't be able to do this without you, but and that's the same for everybody, of course. But yeah, let's say hello to the chat and see what we've got before we bring in our wonderful guest today. One guy in early today, we had DJ Beacon. He's had to nip off, but hopefully he'll catch us on the replay. We've got Frank. He's in. Nice one. Cheers, dude. David Owen's in. Thank you very much. We've got Greg in as well. Really great to see you guys. Dame Judy Hench, Mitch, nice one. Looking forward to hanging out with you again. It was an absolute blast to hang out with you and everybody else, of course, in Glasgow a couple of weekends ago. We got Menno. Menno's in. Have no fear. Menno is not doing a quiz for me tonight. I'm not doing a quiz. This is probably just going to be a short 1 hour, hour and a half live stream. We'll see how we get on. Scott's in. Thank you very much for joining, buddy. We've got Jeff's in. Jeff's in. Yeah, so he's talking about being honoured to appear in the book as well, but we'll be talking about that a bit later on. It's fantastic. Big man Petehead. We've got a couple of Peteheads in. It's the way things go. But yeah, nice one for coming in, my friend. I think that's it for everybody else. But yeah, as always, please do chuck out comments and stuff into the chat, and at me if you've got any questions for our guest. But yeah, if Ingvar's ready, I will bring him in right now. Ooh. There we go. Hey Ingvar, how you doing?
Hi Ben, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well for a Tuesday evening. It feels a bit later in the week in my head, but Tuesday is where we're at.
Yeah.
Good. Well, if anyone doesn't know who you are, you're obviously the, I don't know if it's in order, but you're the editor, founder, owner of the Malt Whisky Yearbook.
Yeah, it's a one-man band. Yeah.
Which is awesome. You know, I don't know how you managed to do it, but I'm sure we'll delve into that a little bit over the questions that I've got for you today. But yeah, absolutely astounding book. Before we get further into the stream, I'm going to fanboy away and say that I've been buying this book for probably 8 to 9 years, way before I started my channel, and to go through it. And the fact that I'm now in it as 2 years running is utterly astounding to me. So I'm eternally grateful to you, and to have you on.
Well deserved, Vin. Well deserved.
I'll
Absolutely.
take it. I'll take it. And Jeff's in the chat as well.
I
He's
know.
in
I
the book,
saw
which
that.
is
Thank you.
awesome. But yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here today. As close to a whiskey celebrity as I think I'm probably going to get. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, we one of the things I kind of do as a general question. We'll talk about what's in our glass in a sec, but the age old question of whiskey origin stories, which I'm sure you've been asked a million times before. Before you got into the book professionally, what kind of got you into whiskey in the first place?
Well, it was that magic trip I made to Scotland in 1980 in the summer. A friend and I we were heading for London for a week. I knew nothing about whiskey at the time. I probably had my share of Johnny Walker Red or something when I was 17, 18. Wouldn't call it interest. There was something else behind that. I wouldn't say we got bored of London, but we wanted to do something else. So we took the train up to Inverness. We had heard something about the Whiskey Trail. We didn't really know what it was. That road connecting the distilleries at that time that were open to the public. There weren't that many. So we rented a car, headed out on that Whiskey Trail, went to Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Strathila, Glenfarclas, I remember. And I was so overwhelmed to not just drink malt whiskey, but also to walk around the distilleries and to meet the people who made it. So I think I was immediately hooked, and I think that has influenced my relationship with the whiskey ever since. And it grew as an interest, as you said, for 20, 25 years. And then I decided in the early years of the new millennium, I wanted to do something more. I needed the information about what was happening in the industry. It didn't exist, very little at least. Most books, very amazing books by Michael Jackson and Sean McLean, but they got outdated. I wanted to have new, fresh facts. So I had to do it myself because I needed it. And thank God there were other people who needed it. So that's how it started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess we all use it in a slightly different way. I mean, I used it. Actually, it's morphed for me over the years. I obviously used it for information because, like you, when my mind was open to the possibilities of whiskey rather than just trying some of the supermarket stuff, I just wanted to know more and more and more, and the information wasn't there. And I found a few books before yours, which we won't go into today. Other annuals that we can ignore. But then randomly I found your book, and it was exactly what I needed. And it's morphed in, for me now. I use it as a resource now because more of a fact checker, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people
Because
do, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, because every year I know that the information in there has been checked and rechecked and rechecked, and it's perfect for me. If I'm going to say something on video and it's in the book, I know I can say it.
Hopefully. I mean, I've been caught out a few times. Well, that wasn't exactly the number of liters in that wash still. But anyway, I can live with that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I've discovered about being in the kind of whiskey sphere is that there is always somebody who knows more than you. Always. And that's why, like, I mean, you've been on the VPub a few times. I do terribly at the quiz at the end because my knowledge is in that book. So I don't retain it here. I just keep it there, knowing that I've got the reference. But yeah, it's cool.
You're absolutely right, Vin. There is always someone in the room who knows more about some part of the whiskey world or the whiskey industry than you do. At the same time, the whiskey world is so forgiving. I mean, all the whiskey enthusiasts. I mean, it's when I'm here or if I'm at the B pub or a whiskey show or doing a tasting. I mean, whiskey people are almost always very good people and nice to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the couple of weekends ago in Glasgow, when I went for the Glasgow Whiskey Festival, was a prime example of that. That it was probably if I was going to put a percentage on it, it'd be like 0.0%, 0.01% of bad eggs, but the rest of it was just incredible. So many great people, and so many great people that I've finally managed to meet in person that I've been talking to through pseudonyms and usernames for years. And they're just there. They're there, and they know who I am, thankfully. So I could go and speak. They could speak to me, and it was great. I just loved it. It was such a good thing.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I know you get out and about in the world, which is great. But for me, I'm quite insular in my little studio in the Midlands, where there's no whiskey apart from mine anywhere. So yeah, it was great to meet people. Great to meet people.
Absolutely.
So I guess, well, I suppose we could talk about what's in our glass, right? Because I noticed you've got a glass. I think you've got some whiskey in front of you.
I
Me
do have.
personally, I've just gone for a very simple palate starter of a Glencadam Reserva PX, which is odd for me. I'm not usually a fan of PX, but this is lovely.
Good choice. I like Glencadam.
Yeah.
Actually, I went for, I don't have the bottle here. I went for Kavalan.
Okay, that's interesting. I've struggled with Kavalan in the past. I haven't tried it at all, and I'd happily try some more. But the ones I have tried, I've tried some of the Solists, I think.
This is, in fact, one of the Solists. I picked it up I was in Taiwan a week ago, 10 days ago, at the distillery, and they had two distillery exclusives in the shop. So I bought this one, the Solist Madeira, which is amazing, really good, really good. And you know, as most of the other people here, I mean, they have so many Solists. It's PX, it's Amontillado, it's Fino, it's Vinho Barrique, it's Bourbon. And I think I tend to agree with you then about some of the PX versions. A bit too much for me. I love the Fino. It's more subtle. This Madeira was wonderful, as I said. The Vinho Barriques are usually very good. So I'm very fond of Kavalan. That's not a secret.
Yeah, I'd like to try some more, but I think I tried. It was years ago now. It must have been 6 years ago. I tried one, and it was one of the worst whiskies I've ever tried. So it put me off for a long time. But I think it might have been a very specific Solist that was a bit too much for me. But I'll happily try them again if I ever see them. I don't ever see them on shelves. Pretty difficult to get hold of, I think.
You're right.
But yeah, I've got a selection of things. So if I end up finishing that at some point, I might move on to something else. I didn't have a particularly good running order with my questions, so I'm just going to fire through them and see what happens. Sure. If it doesn't make any sense to people, then first one I had was if and when I imagine that you retire from writing the yearbook and possibly hand it over to somebody else, if you could only visit one distillery afterwards that you've been to before, what do you think it might be? Because I'm interested to see, in your experience as a punter, as a customer, rather than a business event like trip, what do you think is probably the most exciting or best experience that you've had over?
Wow, that I think that's the first time I've been asked that question. Good one. The thing is, when people ask me, friends here in Sweden, okay, Ingvar, so you've been to all these distilleries, so which one should we visit? It's always hard for me because when I go to Scotland 3-4 times a year, and I book in a walk around the distillery with a distillery manager. It can be a new one, as it often is with the Diageo ones, because they tend to shift all the time. Or it's a person I met before, and we have a walk around, we go through the equipment, we have a chat, and then I go into the car and I drive away to the next one. So it doesn't end with 6 drams going through them. It's not. So I wouldn't be able to recommend to my friends, this is a good tour, because I don't do tours. But there is one distillery that I probably would be my last one to go to, and I would hope that the distillery manager at that time would still be there. And that's Knockdo, and that's Gordon Bruce, which is a very good friend of mine in the whiskey business. And I admire him a lot. He has learned me a lot. I'm not a technical guy. So he's been struggling to explain so many things to me over the years. I've been there many times, and we sent emails, and we have been chatting. And those who know Gordon know that he always tries to find some small geeky tweaks to improve the distillery, not to. And then he has to explain that to me in layman's words so I can understand it. But he's so patient, and he is so probably, yeah, knock two and a walk around with Gordon. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm drastically understudied on Scottish visits, which jumped up quite a lot when I went to Glasgow again. I'm talking about Glasgow a lot probably, but yeah, drastically understudied on classic Scottish distilleries. So I'll take that under advisement, and if I ever get a chance, I'll go and visit them because yeah, I need to do more. Obviously, that being down here in England, I tend to focus a little bit more on English whiskey, but
And there are so
yeah,
many in England. I mean,
yeah.
you can spend a year or two just visiting English distilleries. No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been crazy how many have come through the rafters. I've got actually one of my ones on today is from the first of the new range of English distilleries, but it's peated, so I'll save that one till later. But yeah, it's been crazy how many have come through, and how many are still coming through, and they've all taken into advisement the mistakes of previous distilleries, and they're all producing incredible stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
agree.
and a lot of them are doing interesting things as well because they're not so bound by the rules of Scottish whiskey. So they're doing some weird stuff down here. I will say they're doing some weird stuff.
Absolutely, and as you say, they have the freedom to
Mm,
do some of these things. But as you also mentioned, I mean, it always takes one first distillery to open the market, open a new frontier. And of course, it was the guys in Norfolk who did it
mm,
for England. We had the same situation in Sweden in the very late 1990s with Mackmyra,
hmm
the first Swedish distillery. And it's a tough position to do that because you can't lean on anyone. You can lean on the Scottish producers, Irish producers. But if you want to make something very English or very Swedish, you're on your own.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I know that Mackmyra, they did make some mistakes in the beginning, especially with some of the first releases, and unfortunately they've been suffering for that and still do amongst some of the enthusiasts who
Mm.
refuse to revisit Mackmyra and realize, my God, that was more than 20 years ago. They've learned so much and make fantastic whiskies today. So it's so important to get that first release right.
Mm, definitely. I've actually got a Mackmyra on the table as well that I might pour later. I've got one of their special ones. This is the Brooks Whiskey
Yeah.
DLX 2. And I was a huge fan of Mackmyra, to talk about them for a second, and still am. But it was really funny because last year they withdrew sort of from the UK social space. They had a few guys that were full time, and
Mm.
now that sort of disappeared. And during pandemic, they were everywhere, Mackmyra everywhere. And now I don't really see much from them anymore, which is really strange.
Mm.
So hopefully they'll be back with some cool stuff. But I haven't heard anything about new releases from them in months, which is
I think
shame.
they have a few cards up their sleeve. The
Mm,
thing with Mackmyra is that I think they invested quite heavily in their vertical
mm,
distillery, gravity distillery. Huge investment, and I think they're still suffering from spending a lot of money on that.
mm.
I was there the last time, I think it was in June, and they have some great stuff in the warehouses, absolutely. So hopefully, yes, there will be some great new releases soon.
Good.
Yeah.
Kind of sort of neatly onto this on another segue. Then obviously the book is. It covers every distillery that you're aware of, I think, that's producing malt whiskey one way or another.
Mm.
Obviously, it's heavily focused on Scottish whiskey in terms of single page information. Have you ever been tempted, or even possibly even have the time to produce any sister books for different geographies and demographics, like bourbon or kind of a European focused one?
Actually, I've been thinking about it. The thing is that I'm restricted to 300 pages
Mm,
because I want to keep it below 500 grams due to shipping. I mean, postage would double if I went over there. So that's the main reason why I stick to 300 pages. And that's the reason, one of the reasons I don't enter bourbon into it. I love bourbon, I love rye. I would like to do more on blended scotch and blended malts. I try to mention blended scotch and blended malt in the various distillery presentations. But no, I can honestly say I'm going to stick with just doing the Malt Whisky Yearbook, and malt being malt from malted barley. I mean, you can, if you look at Finland, for instance, in the book, you won't find Kura. Kura is a very great distillery. They're just doing rye, and they're doing it from malted rye from time to time. So if we should stick to the description Malt Whisky Yearbook, they should be in it. But I decided early on malt meaning malted barley, and with an emphasis on the Scottish distillery, because I know that was the thing for me. That's what brought me into liking whiskey. And even though I drink a lot of whiskey from different countries, I always get back to Scotland. I mean, that's closest to my heart. And I guess that's the same for most of my readers. So that's why we have these full pages, sometimes spreads. It's a larger chapter than the world. Absolutely.
No, I agree. You know, and there was a time my YouTube channel has been basically part of my whiskey journey, for want of a better word. Starting with, I mean, I had something like 8 bottles when I started my channel, and it's now, you know, and this isn't. My wife thinks it's a lot, but I always point her to some of the people that I know in the chat today when she says this is a lot. But yeah, it's been part of my journey, and I've gone round and around several times. When I started, it was very Scotch heavy, and then I went on a bit of a bourbon kick and disappeared off for a while. And recently, through no kind of intention, it's become very Scotch focused again over the last couple of years. Maybe because it's what's readily available to me again. I think actually bourbon's quite difficult to get hold of. Really good, interesting bourbon's quite difficult to get hold of.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that's probably how it happens, but yeah, it's just one of those things. And yeah, coming back to Scotch, I'm really enjoying it again. There was a time when I probably shouldn't say this, but I was quoted in saying that the classic ex-bourbon Scotch was a little bit boring, but I'm so wrong. I've definitely come back round to that flavour profile. Talking of questions coming in, I don't want to miss it because he didn't at me, but Menno Multi-Mission is asking a quick question to you, which is, is there any distilleries on continental Europe that you would consider us to be look out for, like on a personal level, like what you're looking forward to trying in the future?
I mean, there are some of the obvious ones, like Patrick Zuidam in Holland. He's doing some great stuff with Millstone. He's been around for 20 years now. He's not a new one, but that's in the Netherlands. Love your stuff. I also like a lot what they're doing at Armorique in France, in Brittany. Probably one of the largest distilleries in France, and definitely the one that has been around the longest. They were the first to do a French single malt years and years ago, doing great stuff. Some of their single casks are amazing. Some of the things coming out from Puni in Italy are very good. I like them, definitely. Tried some interesting, in this edition of the yearbook, I entered for the first time Poland. So I had 3 malt distillers from Poland, and I managed to taste some stuff from them at the Whiskey Live Warsaw a few weeks back. And very young. One of them just the new make or 6-month-old spirit, but very promising, absolutely. So that's nice to see a new country coming into the family.
Absolutely. I think for me, they've got whiskey, I think now, but I'm looking forward to trying some Aurora. Is it Aurora whiskey from kind of north? Is it North Sweden or North Norway? But very much looking forward to trying that. Haven't seen it over here in bottle. It's attacking my light. Oh, I wondered if anyone will be able to hear that yet, but yeah, definitely looking forward to that. That's going to be some good stuff. While we're talking about bottles, David Barnes is asking, do you know how many bottles that you currently own personally?
Yeah, people will be amazed because I think it's just 50 or 60 bottles. I'm not a collector. I'm not
Mm,
a collector. I buy the odd bottles. I'm in a lucky spot because some people send samples to me, so I can taste stuff. It's a bit trickier now since Brexit happened because it's difficult to send samples from UK
mm.
to Sweden. But there are ways to get around that. They send it to the distributor here in Sweden. I can taste it anyway. So, but that's because I do what I do. So I'm lucky to try a lot of stuff anyway. So yeah, I would say around 50, 60 bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Mine has never peaked at more than 110, say, and it's never
Mm.
dipped below 70 since it beat that. But it does flex between that,
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
how much money I've got any given month.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, it's but like you say, I tend to be I'm not a collector. Every single one of my bottles is open, and
Mm.
I when my local club meets, it's been a while actually. When my local club meets, I take 2 or 3 of these and just dump them on the table. And if they go, they go. It doesn't matter what they are. I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
freely sharing. Good, good. Okay, let's move on to another quick question for you then. Now, I I heard you saying, I think it was on the V Pub fairly recently, that obviously, and earlier on today, you created the book to a kind of as a need for yourself.
Mm. Mm.
Obviously, you hoped that people would like it. When do you think it became obvious that it was going to be viable to do it annually? Was it almost immediately, or did it take a couple of years for you to think this is it? I can.
Yeah, yeah, I see what I mean. And it did take a couple of years. I mean,
Mm,
I'm quite optimistic. That's my nature. So the first year I printed 10,000 copies, which was really silly because I sold. It was just under 3,000. So I was sitting there with 7,000 books with a date on it. I mean, it's quite difficult to sell a yearbook 2 years later because there should be a new year and another new year. So I was a bit more cautious the second year and third year, but I realized probably the fourth year, I saw that, yeah, there were people coming back. And I had the thought from the beginning, if I do a series of yearbooks, there will be a lot of people they don't want to miss out on any
mm,
edition. They want to have that on their bookshelf, of course. And then around the fourth or fifth year, I realized something that I didn't anticipate, and that was that the industry would take an interest in the yearbook. That amazed me. I was extremely happy that they did. They bought it for the tour guides, for the brand ambassadors, for their employees, and that has gone up in the last 10 years, absolutely. And it's so nice when you come to a distillery and you meet with the distillery manager in his or her office, and they have a very thumbed edition of the yearbook. It's like this almost. They carry it around, and oh, I love that.
yeah, I think I saw someone mention earlier, and it's the same for me. Like I would say, I think, like I said earlier, I bought probably, I'm going to guess, maybe 2014 onwards. I don't know, maybe not. And the rest of them I bought back because I enjoyed them so much that I wanted to see that snapshot through history. So the ones before that were pre-thumbed, but all the ones after that, they've been, I stuff it in my bag when I go away, even if I'm not
Yeah,
going for
good.
whiskey. I take it around with me. It's mostly here, but it travels around the house with me when I'm sitting there sipping whiskey. I'll have it next to me. So yeah, they're well dog-eared and well thumbed.
Yeah,
Although I'm quite careful.
they should never be in mint condition. Absolutely not. They should look very used.
Yeah, my hope is that one day that when someone has to sort out my collection of those, that they'll be absolutely worthless because they won't be.
Yes.
You couldn't say that they are used. They're just ruined. They're just, yeah. That's my hope, that
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't collect for money. That's for sure.
yeah. Good. That's brilliant.
Um, my friend Mitch is asking another question quickly, which is, I think I know the answer to this because I'm sure I saw you answer this recently. What's the criteria for new distilleries getting an upgrade to the full entry? And I'm pretty sure I think I heard you say that anything past Kilhoman, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to bump up to a full page anytime soon. But
No, that's right. I had to make a decision. So Kilhoman in 2005 was the last distillery to have a full page. And I know Duff Mill, they came in just a few weeks later, and they're still on half a page together with the other new distilleries, which are not so new anymore. Thing is, I mean, we're back to the 300 pages. If every new Scottish distillery, and now we have 5, 6, 7 new ones every year. I think there are 40 or 45 new ones since Kilhoman. I would have to expand the book. And the thing is also, I mean, for some of these new distilleries, I can't write new stuff every year because not so much happens in the startup of a new distillery. Once they've started distilling, then of course 3, 4, 5 years later there will be the first bottling, but very few things change, and I really need to change the content in the book every year. So for all these old distilleries, Scottish ones, if nothing hasn't happened at Glenbergie, and very little, to be honest, happens at Glenbergie. They keep on producing mainly for Ballantyne's. It's beautiful whiskey. I love the distillery. So I have to dig somewhere else. I have to talk about Ballantyne's. So I have to talk about their Lomond still. So I have to talk about other stuff, history or owners or anything else. And there's very little to dig up on the new distilleries. So that's another reason why they are, sadly enough, restricted to half a page.
Yeah, I think it's fair. You know, it's I think the information that's in there is it probably helps you keep it more succinct as well. If you've only got so much space, all that information is really important. For me, I don't tend to worry too much about liters per annum or anything like that. All this good information. So when I get down to the newer distilleries, I like to see that kind of the headline almost about what they're doing. But yeah, I think probably it's hard work to keep them all included. I imagine you struggle to keep up with the new ones. I imagine that's a big part of your year.
Yeah, I mean, who amongst us would have known in the first years of the new millennium that there would be 45 new Scottish distilleries? Of course, we realized, okay, Sweden started. There will be new ones there, Australia, America. But in Scotland, I mean, that's so fantastic. And we still haven't seen the end of it, of course. And the thing is, a lot of people ask me, okay, so don't you have any fears that with so many new distilleries coming up, I mean, they will saturate the market and they will have to shut down? I mean, since Kilhoman and with all the new 45 ones, none of them have closed. So hopefully there is space for all these. And we have to remember that most of these new distilleries are quite small. We're talking between 50,000 and 200,000 liters per year. Just few are over 1 million liters. So I think there will be space for them and another 20 or 30 new ones, absolutely, in the next decade. And hopefully none of them will have to close.
Yeah, I think we're obviously whiskey's had a kind of tumultuous history throughout, through time, and I think whiskey it's got a long memory, and I think that they've learned from their mistakes in the early 1900s and 1980s and whatnot, and I think a lot of them that closed too soon that couldn't get that boom back. I think they've all learned from that. I think it's just about, especially some of these newer distilleries as well, that aren't keeping their spirit for 15, 18, 21 years before it's viable. They're releasing whiskey in 4 or 5 years. It's quite not easy, but it's easier to forecast that, I think.
Yeah.
So,
if this... And also, I mean, it's easier today. If you start a new distillery, you can always go down the track that you at the same time open a visitor center. You may do some gin to have a good financial balance the first 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, you didn't do that in the 1950s, 60s. You didn't do that in the late 1800s. So now you have more possibilities of funding your operation by doing these things as well.
Mm.
And you have a larger market, of course. I mean, some of these new distilleries, already after 3 or 4 years, they're exporting to Taiwan, they're exporting to China, they're exporting to America, which they didn't do in the mid 1950s or late 1800s.
Yeah, I think it's dead right, and I'm often asked the same question, like where on the bell curve of popularity do we think whiskey is? And I'm sure at some point in the future it'll drop off, and maybe we'll get oversaturated in the next sort of 2 decades. But I think it's unlikely. Like you said, I think it will. There's always options, and the more options that we've got, the better. If anything, I hope it brings prices back down. That would be nice, but
That would be
we
nice.
we'll see. We'll see. um, okay, so talking about the book even more about some of the early days. Obviously, I mean, I've got the 2007 version there, and even from there, you had quite prevalent whiskey writers writing articles for the book. I wondered, was it a struggle at the start to get those prevalent people interested? I imagine you've got people knocking down your door now to be in it, but was it a struggle at the start to get these writers involved, or were they just immediately on board with it?
It wasn't a struggle. And the reason it wasn't was in my hometown, Malmö in Sweden, there lived a guy, he passed away, I think it was a year ago now, Ulf Buxrud. And he'd been in the whiskey business for a long time as a collector, mainly as a collector. He wrote a few books as well. He knew everyone. So I phoned him up and said, you don't know me, we live in the same town. I have this idea of doing a Malt Whisky Yearbook. Could we have lunch? Absolutely, he said. And I asked him, do you have any tips, or any people I should know? Because I want some writers doing the first part of the book. And he said, absolutely. And he gave me an introduction to Charlie MacLean, to Michael Jackson, to Helen Arthur, to all these people. So I just slide it in thanks to him. It was so easy. It would probably have been a struggle if he hadn't introduced me to these people.
No, that's cool. I like that because it's like I said, you've had
Could
yes.
I just get a cable to, because I'm losing my battery now.
No, please do. Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, be with you soon.
Okay, I'll have a chat with you guys, but I think I might have missed a few questions as we've been going along, but I will get to them. I promise. Thank you very much for dropping those into us. Yeah, there's been a couple here, but yeah, thanks very much for joining, and do chuck more questions in if you have them. For me or Ingvar, that's fine. But hopefully you're all into the Malt Whisky Yearbook. I'm not here to kind of like sell it to you. I don't think I need to be honest. I think most of you are more than interested in it. But if you haven't picked up a copy, then please do, because it's a fantastic book. Hopefully we haven't just lost Ingvar, but it sounds like he's losing his battery. But he'll be with us. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to move on to my next dram now, I think. I'm going to go for... What should I go for? I'm going to go for that McMira that I said earlier. We've got the McMira Brooks Whiskey Deluxe 2. I haven't covered this on the channel yet. It's been one of those ones that I've just sat on for a long time. I'm going to do it because I've got the DLX1 and the DLX2. So I am going to do it at some point, but I don't know. It's one of those ones where I don't think you can get hold of it very well. So, nearly spilt that. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to knock Ingvar off so that you can see me full screen again, and then he can come back on when he's ready. Yeah, no problem. I don't mind talking to you guys. Hopefully you guys don't mind hearing me talk. Yeah, like I said, hopefully you're enjoying the content at the moment, because it's I've been doing a lot. I have to say, I've been doing a lot of reviews, a lot of interim content, like obviously the Sample Saturdays, and of course, I know you all love the whiskey and whiskey out, but let me know if it's kind of fitting your bill. If you're interested in kind of the amount of reviews I'm doing. Oh, I think he's back. Let me bring him back in. There you go. You're back in.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I had more battery than I did.
No, it's all good. I fully appreciate the live stream vibes, because actually today I've had no technical difficulties on my side whatsoever, which is that's StreamYard doing its job well, I think.
Okay, good.
Because yeah, I did try. There was a time when I tried to do it all for free using Streamlabs, OBS, that sort of thing, and it was I know what you were saying earlier about not being a technical guy. I'm not. In my day job, I am, but when it comes to audio and video, computery stuff, I just
Mm.
not. My brain's not interested in that. So
Yeah,
if it's
same
hard
here.
work,
Completely hopeless here.
yeah. But
Very
no, that
analog.
very analog. Yeah, yeah. Because I think you were talking to Roy about that recently about having like an app or something like that, and I agree with you what you said about it.
Won't
That
happen. Won't
yeah,
happen.
I'm not interested in it. Because if I'm out and about, then I've got as many resources on my phone as I want. But the whole reason why I like your book is because it's so tactile and so
Mm.
that
Mm.
when I'm reading it, I'm in the moment. I'm not just. It's an excuse to get off my phone, if nothing else.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I've while you were out, then I just poured the McMira that I've got. So yeah, actually, it's a bit smokier than I was expecting it to be. I haven't tried it in a long time, but
Okay.
yeah, it's good. I did spill a bit as well, so I'll have to tidy that
Is
up
that
later.
part of the core range, or what did you have in the glass?
It was the Brooks Whiskey DLX 2 Deluxe 2, and
Ah,
it's I
okay. A
don't know
special
if you would.
version of Brooks. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think you would call it a moment. I think it was a moment.
yeah, yeah.
But I was just saying to the guys watching that I haven't covered it yet. I've had it for like over a year and I haven't covered it yet. But I get a bit funny about covering whiskey that you can't get hold of anymore. It kind of seems pointless if I'm going to sit and review it if you can't buy it. But I'll get to it.
Yeah, but in a way, I agree with you, and that's. I started 7, 8 years ago to do some whiskey books for the Swedish market, and some of these were. It was a take on Ian Buxton's 101 whiskies to try before you die, but just to piss him off a bit, I did 105. I like him a lot. He's been writing in the Malt Whisky Yearbook. But anyway, so I did 105, and I was so cautious about just having whiskey, no single cask, nothing that you could say, wow, that sounded good. Yeah, well, it's gone. There were 280 bottles, and you can't buy it anymore. So I think that's important when you do reviews that people can actually go out and buy it afterwards.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do aim to, but I get feedback all the time saying that sometimes people just appreciate my views on a whiskey, even if they can't get hold of it. So
Mm.
it'll be one of those ones where if the mood takes me, I'll grab it. But
Yeah.
yeah, a couple of questions from the chat for you. We had one from a good friend of mine, Ben Marnock, he says, I mean, obviously a hard question to answer, but how many Scottish distilleries have you still to visit? And is there any one in particular that's kind of like next on your hit list that you're most looking forward to?
I think I still have, in my book, there are now 139 active malt whisky distillers in Scotland. And I think there are five or six that I haven't visited yet.
Mm.
So I'm looking forward to go to Rosebank in probably in April. I was outside the distillery. I called them and said when I was in the vicinity just a few months ago, I said, I know it's a Sunday. Can I come by? Well, it has to do with the Sunday. The thing is, we haven't started distilling yet. So, I mean, it's impossible. We have work going on there, so it was just outside. But Rosebank, absolutely. I mean, there's such a beautiful history with that distillery. I think a lot of us here we love the old Rosebanks and hated it when they closed down in '95. And I'm still thinking of if they had chosen Rosebank instead of Glenkinchie as part of the classic malts, if it wouldn't have been continuing to work up until these days. But they chose Glenkinchie for various reasons. But Rosebank, yeah, beautiful whiskey, and in the hands of some really good people, Ian MacLeod. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've. I'm just trying to think if I've ever tried, not knowingly, maybe in a bar. I think I maybe have tried. I've never owned a bottle of anything like a Rosebank. So I'm just hoping that they. I'm sure they will do it justice, but I'm hoping that they'll do the best they can.
I'm sure they
And
will. Absolutely,
yeah,
very
well,
clever people.
we'll find out pretty quickly, won't we? When their first bottle's released, and people like me get their mitts into it, we'll find out very quickly. let's see if we had another question. Oh yeah, so this was going on from a question that I asked earlier from Menno. He's saying, did it take time to have the distilleries on board with the concept? I know obviously you're going to be writing about them no matter what, but I imagine you call them a lot to get information from them. Did you have at the start people just sort of like not caring who you were or what you were doing?
Yeah, for the first few years, absolutely. But quite quickly, I mean, it was easier to get hold of people on the production side. And still is, to be honest. It's more difficult to work with the people on the marketing side, and I've noticed in the last 7 or 8 years, more and more I'm directed to PR companies, whereas before I could speak directly to the brand directors, etc., at the company. But there's been a shift there, and I've spoken to some of the other writers, other journalists in the business, and they say the same thing. And I guess it's easier. It's easier to have a PR company doing that work. But the thing is, there are some good PR companies, absolutely. There are some really lousy ones where you realize that some of these people, they work with perfumes 2 years earlier. They're working with whiskey now. 2 years in the future, they will be working with cars. So they really don't have their soul into whiskey like the people working at Pernod Ricard or Edrington, etc., etc. But the production people, I've always had a really good relationship with them. I mean, I can call up most distillery managers anytime, and I can come and visit the distillery. I can get some really valuable information. So there's a difference there between these two sides, absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean as well. I deal with a lot of PR companies myself. Most of the time it's fine, but yeah, occasionally I'll get an email come through and then it will just be I'll reply to it and it will just be a black hole for weeks. But I don't tend to chase people. If they want me, they can come and get me. I always say, they can. That my email address is everywhere, so if people want me, they can come and get me. But then
Yeah,
I'm not trying to get the information that you're getting because I
have to chase them, absolutely.
yeah. Because I guess if especially from the information you've got there, if someone's installing a new still into a well-established Scottish distillery, you want to know how that changes the LPA. So finding that information can't be easy sometimes.
Oh, actually, for me, it's not a problem. I mean, I can call up the distillery manager quite easily, and they will. Okay, so we went from 5.5 to 5.8 million liters, so not a problem. Thank God.
Absolutely. Okay, I think a couple more I've got for you. So I was checking out when I was writing these questions. I did a bit of a deep dive into your previous interviews, and I found one from 2011 for the Whiskey Wire, and you said in there that you had a dream of sitting on Jura like Orwell, writing your yearbooks. This is a long time ago now. I
Yeah,
wondered, as a bit of a jokey question, if you're anywhere closer to that dream, if it's even going to be a possibility for you, because I know you said in there that your family definitely wouldn't come with you, but
they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Absolutely not. The dream is absolutely still there. And when I was in Jura, that was probably 6 months ago, the last time, I was thinking about it, and I realized that I wouldn't be staying in Orwell's cottage, even though you can do that, because I haven't been to the cottage. Actually, it's on the north side. I mean, it's so. And they told me that, and I was thinking, okay, I can write in the daytime. I can sit in the hotel, Jura Hotel, in the evening in the bar, having a few grams with the locals. Well, if you're staying in Orwell's cottage, you can't do that because if you're walking, it will take at least 7 or 8 hours. So, but still, sitting on an island and doing the whole job of just finishing off the book, maybe 2 months or so, is still a dream. I haven't come closer, but still a dream. But I can assure you, my family won't be there. I would love for them to be there, but they would resist.
I know what you mean. I sometimes think because I'm based in the Midlands in England, and we're quite far removed from. There's a couple of distilleries around here now, and it will get better. But in terms of like proper classic, being involved in whiskey, you've either got to be in London or Glasgow or Edinburgh. Probably Glasgow, I imagine better.
Mm.
But I've got a 3-year-old now who's about to start school, so once that happens, that'll be me locked in for a couple of decades probably before I'm able to do that. But
That's a bit of a change in your life. You have to admit that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but me and my wife both agree if we don't retire somewhere relatively near the seaside, hopefully somewhere Scottish, I think we'll be having hard words with ourselves because that's definitely both of our dreams. But
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
yeah,
Good. You
I guess
share
it
that
depends what.
dream. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, one day, because we were a bit of an aside fact, but where I am in Coventry, if you drew a line from the coast of every point in the UK, I'm about 10 miles away from the furthest you can get from the coast in the UK, which is
Uh-huh.
only about 71 miles. It's not horrendous,
No. No. Okay.
but it's still a depressing thought. I like to be somewhere near the coast. It's nice. We have got another question before I've got one more, but before I've got a question from Greg. He says, have you ever written or previously written any other kind of books not related to whiskey, for instance? Because I know you're a writer by trade, right? So,
Actually, not by trade. I mean, the first
mm,
books I did were about whiskey. I've done some things in publishing, yes. Actually, yeah, I've done, I think it's 28 books on whiskey now, but I've also done 3 books on birds. The last one was probably 15 years ago. So
mm.
that's another interest of mine. Uh, I did actually 2 yearbooks, rare birds yearbooks, about the most threatened bird species in the
Oh,
world. Didn't sell that well, but it was great fun doing it.
yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I know that there's definitely a lot of hobbies tend to mix over with whiskey, I guess, as well. Because I know you can, to a certain extent, you could combine those two with a little hip flask or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
sure. Yeah. And
but I know,
actually, it's quite common in Sweden for birders to also be interested in whiskey. If they twitch a new species, they can always celebrate with the whiskey. It's quite common in Sweden.
yeah, that's really interesting. It's not something I've ever done personally, but I know there's a few guys in the community that are into it. There's a guy on my Discord channel called James who he's big into his photography and he loves he's got some amazing pictures of birds that he's taken, and I like to talk to him about that a little bit, going a bit off piste because you must, especially if you're a photographer of it as well, you must take 100 of missing birds before you finally get one that's not
Yeah,
taken off.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it teaches you a lot of patience, I should imagine, which can only be good for the whiskey because you've got to be patient in this hobby. I think you've got to be patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
My final question then is a bit of again a left field, maybe jokey question, but obviously, like I mean, this is the 19th edition now, isn't it? So you must be
Mm-hmm.
well embedded into a kind of annual cycle of how you produce the book. Do you have a particular like least favorite part of the year when it comes to producing the book?
Actually, I don't. I mean, usually the book is published 1st of October every year. After that, I have 2 months of sales and distribution. So, and then comes Christmas. Usually, I have a break in January, 1st of February, around that time. I start to work on the next edition of the yearbook. It always starts with 2 or 3 months of research, which then continues. But after 3 months, I start doing some writing. And I love the research, I love the writing. I think the worst part, but not so much in the yearbook, but more in the books I've done for the Swedish market, is when I have to do tasting notes. That's absolutely, I absolutely hate doing tasting notes. For myself, fine, but if I'm doing tasting notes that I have to publish, and I mentioned this book about 105 chosen whiskies. And so I ordered 300 samples from the producers. And I spent 4 or 5 weeks. Every day I'm sitting there with another set of new glasses, new whiskies to try. And I absolutely hate that because that takes away the fun in whiskey for
Mm,
me. I don't enjoy it. I realize I have to do it because for one reason or another, readers want to have tasting notes, and I'm trying to tell them, don't don't read tasting notes, make your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's much better than to rely on what other people say, because I mean we all know that whiskey is very personal. And at the same time, I realize if you, for instance, you read some film critic, and you realize after having read 10 of these pieces, and you've seen the 10 movies, and you realize that this critic and we have the same taste. Okay, then of course, and the same with whiskey or books or whatever, you will have some use of reading other people's opinions. But otherwise, I try to encourage people not to read too many tasting notes. Make up your own mind. Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I was deciding to do this project of mine, and I came up with the name No Nonsense Whiskey, one of the big things I wanted to do was the flavor profile wheel that we all see is to never go in too deep on that when I'm putting my own tasting notes. So I talk a lot about spices and cereal, and I don't go down into the various versions of that you might get, because I find it bogs me down and it bogs other people down. What it does mean is that my tasting notes tend to be quite generic. You know, I'm talking about vanillas and tannins and smoke and things like that. But you know, if I pick out something in particularly interesting, I might bring it up. But yeah, I'm exactly the same as that. Nothing saps my evening out than having to sit there and think of 13 different things I'm smelling on the nose, because
No.
I
But
don't think I'm really capable of it.
But the thing is also, I mean, you can write tasting notes in different ways, where you just focus on what you pick up. I think the tasting notes you're doing have more into it. And the same with Jeff, who I know is with us tonight. Your tasting notes have something more to give to the audience. And so does, for instance, a guy like Sash, who we all look up to. I mean, he has a great nose. He's amazing. The only thing I can say, his tasting notes are a bit long. I mean, they are novels. And halfway through them, I have to read the rest after dinner. But anyway, he's writing in such an entertaining way. And if you can do that, it becomes more than just a tasting note. It's fun to read it. So there's another level of doing a tasting note.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was I was just reading here, I'm trying to think who it was. It's either, well, I've lost the comment now, but anyway, someone was either Menno or Greg was basically saying that they hate it when producers tell us what the tasting notes are. So if you look on a bottle or a box and you have a list of tasting notes, I try really hard not to look at that when I'm writing my own notes, because it's so easy for you to read the word and then smell and taste that very quickly. So yeah, I try hard not to. Actually, we've managed to get almost exactly to an hour, which is perfect. It's exactly what I said. And I don't have any extra questions for you. So if anyone else has anything to chuck out, then please do now. But at this sort of final point in the live stream, I just want to reiterate that it's an absolute pleasure to have you on and to have a conversation with you like this, because
great to be here. Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's great to see like the evolution of the book as it's gone through its iterations, even from the kind of like the internet side of things, which was there right from the start, which has morphed from websites of general interest into blogs, and now thankfully into YouTube, which I'm eternally grateful for. So I guess it must be interesting for you as the writer editor to see how that whiskey landscape has changed, because I mean it was 2 years into it before Ralphie even started his channel, and he was like 2009, I think.
Yeah.
So that's it must be incredible for you to see how it's morphed over the years.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's incredible to see the evolution of distilleries and the way new distilleries are coming up with new ideas and not always new ideas. I mean, nowadays it's very much back to the future. They're looking back to direct fire stills, floor malting, etc. But it's also really interesting to see how the commentating side of the business has developed, not least in the last, I should say, 6 or 7 years, and especially on YouTube, which I find very entertaining, really good. I mean, sometimes it adds so much more than just doing a blog. There are so many good blogs, absolutely, but YouTube channels are such a nice add to the commentators. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I almost started a blog, but I've written in the past, but I'm not a natural writer. It takes me hours and hours and hours and redraft and redraft and redraft to make it worthwhile. And it turns out that I can not churn out videos, but I can do them fairly quickly, especially in comparison to writing a script.
Yeah,
So yeah, it seemed natural to me. But I'm glad that more and more people are doing it because it was so easy to start, difficult to master, but so easy to start to pick up a camera and go. So I'm grateful to the whole industry for kind of I was going to say entertaining us a little bit, but I guess we're, dare I say, becoming slightly more important day by day, which is good. I enjoy that, but yeah.
Good.
Yeah, but yeah, again, thank you very much for having me on, having you on, and for everyone for being here today. You know, we've had a good few people in to chat to us today, which is great. So yeah, hopefully you've all hit the like button and all that kind of jazz to help YouTube let us know that you like the content. But yeah, again, one final thank you for you coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully I'll get to have a dram with you at some point in the future if you're over here. But that'd be
I
great.
very much hope so. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll say again, thank you to everybody else, and we'll probably draw the stream to a close.
Okay.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Ingvar.
Cheers. Bye.
See you soon.